Making little peyote tubes is honestly kind of addictive. I wouldn't say that it's as addictive as chocolate, but it is pretty addictive. And I have already created a video that is how to make little peyote tubes. I'll pop up a link to that video here if you don't know how to already do that. But I wanted to give you some ideas on some other things that you can do with those little peyote tubes, including creating designs. And I'm going to have a free design that I will have available for you. I'll pop up a link for that too on this video. And I will have that free design and show you the little what am I trying to say? The little earring that you can make. But I wanted to give you an idea also on other things that you can do with these peyote tubes. So let's take a look at some pieces of jewelry that I brought with me today. These are all pieces that I created back in the early days of my jewelry career when I used to make pieces and go to craft shows and sell them at craft shows. And one of the ways that I kind of differentiated myself was I included just like little pieces of bead weaving in it. If you have done the craft show circuit, you know that it's very difficult to make a lot of money on something that, or make really any money on something that you've spent a lot of time with. So for instance, this piece is a strung jewelry piece. I just added in a couple of these little peyote tubes here, and it really elevates the entire piece to a much more handmade kind of unique artisan piece. It didn't take me a lot of time to make those tubes, and so I'm still able to price this in a way that will get it sold. Same thing here. Here I just did a whole series of color coordinated peyote tubes. I love putting little crystals in between them. I like to create an end cap here where it's a line of demarcation between the beaded portion, the beaded bead portion, and then the crystal. It just creates a really elegant look. And again, this didn't take forever to make because once I got those little peyote tubes made, then the rest of it was just stringing. Here, same exact concept, except I did wire wrapping the pieces together. And then again here, I just was creating a little way to set off the focal. Let's show it in its nice and proper manner. I just wanted to show off this focal bead and kind of point towards the focal. In this case, I made these peyote tubes longer, just for scale purposes, but you can make these little peyote tubes as big or as little as you want. So here's an example of a little tiny one. I'm going to guess that this one was probably about 8 beads long when I started this out. I have no idea how many this is, probably about 30 or so. And the other difference here, let me show you, is in diameter. So here I just did, let's see, it looks like, 10 rows on this one. This one, it looks like I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I did 16 rows on this one, which makes it a much thicker piece. Now the downside of a thicker piece, and this one is not too bad. It's doing a little bit of flattening over time. This has been sitting in a drawer for a couple of years now, and it has kind of flattened down. With the little tiny ones, tiny diameter ones, if you're doing, say, a 10 or 12 row one, you really don't have to worry about flattening. But on the thicker ones, you do have to worry a little bit about it flattening. And you can make them quite a bit bigger also. So if you're making it bigger than this, then it would really flatten down probably right from the very beginning. So what you can do to offset that is use an interior support, and there's a couple things that you can use for that. One of the really useful things to use is a straw, plastic straw, and here's how you would do that. You would kind of measure, you want to cut it just a little bit shorter than the actual physical piece. Using a wire cutter here, which is probably not the best thing. If you had scissors, that would be better. So I just want to kind of verify that it's shorter. It is. Then I'm going to actually just cut right down the center of this. I'm splitting the tube. I'm going to use a slightly different tool here. There we go. So I'm splitting that tube open. What that allows me to do is to roll it up so that it's much smaller. And in practicing this, to make sure that this was going to go inside here, I discovered that because I was needing this to be so much smaller that all this extra plastic was kind of getting in the way. So I'm actually going to cut a little bit more of this off so that I can make it an even finer support. Okay, so now when I roll it, I can roll it nice and tight. And go ahead and get stuck inside, push it on through. If you need to, you can use a flat nose pliers to help push it in that last little bit of the way. And then when you release that, what happens is all that rolled up part opens up, and that's what then will create a much thicker and more robust structure. It will keep this from flattening. So that's a way to do it after the fact. Another way that you can put something inside there is actually to use a rat tail. This is, some people will see it as a silk cord. Rat tail is a name for it, mouse tail, depending on how thick it is. But this is another option for you if you've got some bigger beads. Let's see, I've got one more here. In this case, what you may end up having to do, well, actually this is going through it with no problem. Voila, like so. And what you can do, because this is very silky, and so it will move back and forth, when you cut it and get it inside, if I had, let's see here, do I have, nope, I don't have a needle with thread on it. But if I had thread attached to this needle and I had it attached to this beaded bead, all I would have to do is poke back and forth through the center here a couple times with my thread. I can literally just poke right on through, making sure that I'm catching and going through that rat tail cord. And then I would just maybe move a couple of beads over and then poke it right back through the center again. And this is what I would consider tacking it down. And you could just tack that satin rat tail cord, and then that will stay inside with no problem. Your last option for, well, I shouldn't say last, because I'm sure you creative people out there could come up with more. But another option for you would be to put beads inside. This works best if you're going to use something like wire inside. In this case, I've got a head pin with me. And the trick is just finding the right size bead for that will fit inside. These happen to be size 11 delicas that I'm working with here. And if I load up this head pin with them, I'm sure I can do that. Okay, let's just see if this will go on through. Yep, and in this case, these beads are actually a little bit too small. I would probably want to go to something more like a size 10 delica. You can see how there's still quite a bit of space between the bead and the exterior of this beaded bead, this peyote tube. So that would just be an experimentation thing to figure out what kind of beads will work best for you there. It's going to totally depend on how thick your tube is. Okay, so that's all the information about interior supports. But let me tell you about the pretty pattern that I have created for you guys. And I've made two different versions here. Actually, I've made three different versions. Okay, so these guys are done with size 10 delicas. And it's a slightly larger earring, so this is probably for people who aren't afraid of a kind of bold look. If you're a little more on the petite side, this is using size 11 delicas. And you notice that there's quite a bit of difference between the 11s and the 10s. In a seed bead, there's very little difference between a size 11 and a size 10, but in the delicas, it's a huge difference. And as a matter of fact, I've got on this little head pin here, here's the size 11 delica here and your size 10 delica on the side. But I wanted to show you that because this pattern can work up no matter what size bead you're using. And the other thing that I did differently in these guys is I inverted the colors when I made the color scheme. So here your main color was the light color. You can notice that it's more light colored. And here the light color is just the little accent bead. So I actually think that this would be cool to wear these as a pair of earrings with them reversed on either side, because that would be real artsy fartsy and funky. Okay, so because I've got the peyote tube tutorial for you, and I've got the link to the pattern, I don't actually need to show you right here how to do this, but what I do want to show you is how you're going to put this together into an earring, just in case you haven't done this before. And one of the things that I love to do is, like I said, is I like to offset and create kind of a nice edge here on the end of the peyote tube. And because I forgot to bring any of these little spacers, these little daisy spacers are my favorite thing to use for that. So I'm going to just cut this apart. I know it's kind of sacrilege, but it's my bracelet. I can do it. Because I wanted to show you how exactly I do this. So here's my head pin, and I'm going to use in this case, this is actually a gemstone, but this is the equivalent of a 4mm Swarovski round crystal. That just happens to be a carnelian gemstone. And then I would pick up my daisy spacer, and then the earring, the beaded bead, and a daisy spacer. I think I'm just going to use the big daisy spacer. And then I'm ready to create a loop for the top edge. Actually, I lied. I got to put my other carnelian on there, because otherwise I'm going to be all lopsided. There we go. So now I'm ready to create a loop for that top of the earring. And there's two ways that you can do this. One is the old-fashioned way, using flat nose and round nose pliers. I also want to show you, though, I had discovered this new tool, and I was playing with it for the first time this week, and I really kind of like it because I tend to make really ugly loops. I don't do a lot of wire work, and so I don't get a lot of practice. So I wanted to show you this tool. This is called a one-step looper, and the way this works is you'd take your piece of wire and you're going to put it underneath this little round doohickey here. That's a highly technical term. Round doohickey. There's actually even a hole on the outside edge of this big piece, so that if your wire extends that far, it will actually, you can poke it through that hole. So you want to bring it right up to the edge here, and then voila, and make sure that you've got it all the way down to the end of your head pin here. And now, as I do this, it automatically cuts it off, forms the loop, and there we go. The loop is all ready to go. And what you will have to do is do some finessing. This piece here didn't, like I said, I'm still new to this. It creates kind of a U-shaped or a teardrop shaped rounded loop instead of a rounded loop. But since I have so much trouble judging how much wire I need to just turn it with my round nose pliers, I actually kind of like this little one-step looper thing. So at this point, I'm just ready to use my flat nose pliers. I'll open that loop up, pop my ear wire on there, close the loop down, and there we go. You're ready to go with a brand new earring. And you certainly can do the same thing with the bigger pieces, and you can also, obviously play with these beaded beads. They don't have to be earrings. They can be a whole bunch of other things. As a matter of fact, I am going to have a necklace version of the beaded beads, and I'll pop a link up to that tutorial here in a second. I would love to see if you work with these and what kind of jewelry you make, so please share with me and so that I can share with other people. You can like this video, you can subscribe to the channel to make sure that you get all of the videos. And don't forget my website at jillwiseman.com. I've got all sorts of supplies and kits and instructions for you there. And then you can come find me on Facebook and then share with me and with all of my other followers what you're working on. We'd love to see it. Thanks.